What if I told you the RAF's sleekest bomber was so cramped pilots couldn't stretch their legs? That its revolutionary design made it faster than some early bombers, but turned into a death trap for everyone on board? Strap in for the tragic tale of the Handley Page Hampden, a plane that soared with promise but crashed into infamy. Welcome to Historical Digs, where we unearth the untold tales of history's most ingenious machines. The promise of speed. In the mid-1930s, as Europe teetered on the brink of war, the Royal Air Force faced a critical dilemma. Its bomber fleet, dominated by sluggish giants like the Handley Page Hampden and Armstrong Whitworth Whitley, was woefully unprepared for modern aerial combat. The RAF's doctrine of daylight precision bombing demanded a revolutionary aircraft, one that could outpace enemy fighters, evade anti-aircraft fire, and deliver payloads with surgical accuracy. Enter the Handley Page Hampden, a bomber born from equal parts ambition and desperation, whose sleek silhouette promised to redefine aerial warfare, but whose design flaws would haunt the crews tasked with flying it. The Hampden's genesis traces to Air Ministry Specification B932, which called for a fast, twin-engine medium bomber capable of carrying a 2,000-pound payload over 1,000 miles. Handley Page's chief designer, George Volkert, responded with a radical concept, a bomber so streamlined it could rival single-engine fighters in speed. The Hampden's fuselage, a mere 3 feet wide at the cockpit, resembled a torpedo more than a traditional bomber. Its structure featured a narrow semi-monocoque metal fuselage with fabric-covered control surfaces, a blend of lightweight metal framing and practical speed-first engineering. Unlike the Wellington's geodetic frame, the Hampden opted for a more conventional metal semi-monocoque construction focused on speed. Coupled with twin Bristol Pegasus 18 radial engines, each producing 980 horsepower, the Hampden could reach 265 miles per hour, faster than older bombers like the Whitley. Before we dig deeper into the Hampden's fast and furious story, hit that like button and subscribe to Historical Digs. Your support helps us unearth the lost stories of history's most ingenious war machines. Test flights in 1936 revealed both promise and peril. Test pilots reported the Hampden's agility in RAF evaluations, noting its ability to execute steep banks, uncommon for bombers of its era. Yet the cockpit's claustrophobic dimensions, a narrow tunnel just 2 feet wide at the pilot's seat, drew immediate criticism. Navigators, forced to double as bomb aimers, had to contort themselves around the pilot's seat to reach the nose-mounted bomb sight, a maneuver trainees likened to threading a needle while wearing a parachute. Gunners fared worse, crammed into plexiglass bubbles at the rear and ventral positions, their .303 Vickers K machine guns offering a combined rate of fire less than half that of a German's Bf-109's cannons. The Air Ministry, desperate to modernize, overlooked these flaws. In 1938, before the first production model rolled out, they ordered 1,500 Hampdens, a staggering commitment that strained Handley Page's factories. Production line in Cricklewood and Radlett prioritized speed over precision, resulting in inconsistent quality control. Hydraulic systems, crucial for operating the bomb bay and landing gear, frequently failed during trials. A 1939 RAF maintenance manual warned, the Hampden's electrical circuits are prone to shorting when exposed to moisture, requiring daily inspections. Despite these red flags, the Hampden's early proponents championed its potential. Air Chief Marshal Sir Edgar Ludlow Hewitt, head of Bomber Command, hailed it as the bomber of the future during a 1938 press briefing. His optimism stemmed from the Hampden's unprecedented range, 1,200 miles with a full payload, and its ability to fly at 19,000 feet, beyond the reach of most anti-aircraft guns. In simulated combat exercises, Hampdens outran Hawker Fury biplane fighters, fueling hopes that speed alone could compensate for its lack of armor or firepower. Yet the Hampden's design harbored a fatal oversight: survivability. The airframe, while resilient, offered no protection against bullets or flak. Fuel tanks, unarmored and lacking self-sealing liners, sat exposed along the wings. A single incendiary round could ignite the doped fabric skin, transforming the bomber into a fireball. Parachutes weren't worn but stowed in tight compartments, and retrieving them under fire was a grim gamble, a flaw that drew protests from early test crews. By 1939, as the first Hampdens entered squadron service, the RAF's gamble was clear. They had bet on a bomber that looked revolutionary on blueprints but demanded superhuman resilience from its crews. The Hampden story, from drafting table to combat zone, would become a parable of innovation's double edge, a machine as beautiful as it was deadly. From factory to failure. As the first Hampdens rolled off production lines in 1938, the gap between blueprint and battlefield widened into a chasm. Handley Page's factories, unprepared for the breakneck pace demanded by the Air Ministry, became crucibles of chaos. The bomber's revolutionary design, so elegant in prototypes, clashed violently with the realities of mass production. In workshops across Cricklewood and Radlett, overworked engineers grappled with inconsistent blueprints, scarce materials, and a workforce stretched to its limits. The result? A fleet of bombers as unpredictable as the war they were built to fight. The Hampden semi-monocoque metal construction, a masterpiece in theory, proved fiendishly complex to replicate. Each fuselage required 6,500 individually cut wooden components, glued and bolted with precision tolerances. At Radlett, teams of carpenters, many recruited from furniture factories, struggled to match the craftsmanship of Handley Page's prototype shop. Hydraulic systems, sourced from overburdened subcontractors, leaked fluid in 30% of completed planes, while electrical wiring, often installed by untrained laborers, short-circuited during engine tests. The RAF's desperation for modern bombers overrode caution. In July 1939, the Air Ministry accepted Hampdens with provisional certification, green-lighting planes lacking armor, self-sealing fuel tanks, or functional gun turrets. Pilots received manuals outdated by 3 design revisions, warning ominously, landing gear may fail to deploy if hydraulic pressure drops below 1,200 psi. Training programs collapsed under the strain. Navigators practiced bombing runs in obsolete Hawker Hinds, while gunners fired at towed targets with obsolete Lewis guns, a far cry from Hampden's .303 Vickers Ks. The Hampdens' combat debut on September 4, 1939, a daylight raid against German warships at Wilhelmshaven, exposed the folly of this haste. 10 aircraft from No. 144 Squadron took off from RAF Hemswell, tasked with sinking the pocket battleship Admiral Scheer. Within hours, the mission unraveled. 2 Hampdens aborted immediately with engine fires. 3 more veered off course due to faulty compasses. The remaining 5, navigating by dead reckoning through 1010 cloud cover, dropped bombs blindly into the North Sea. One crew, disoriented and critically low in fuel, aborted the mission after failing to locate the target. All returned empty-handed, their only casualty a navigator hospitalized with frostbite from a cracked cockpit window. Undeterred, the RAF continued daylight raids despite catastrophic losses, with crews privately referring to Hampden missions as near-suicidal. The bomber's speed, once its selling point, became a curse. At 265 miles per hour, formation scattered, leaving individual planes exposed to flak and fighters. Gunners, isolated in their plexiglass bubbles, found their .303s useless against armored Bf-109s. A January 1940 raid on the Scharnhorst in Kiel Bay saw 6 Hampdens intercepted. 5 fell to fighters, their crews incinerated in fuel-fed infernos. The sole survivor, riddled with 187 bullet holes, landed with a dead gunner slumped over his jammed weapon. Factory fixes only deepened the crisis. To meet Canadian production needs, a Mark II variant with Wright Cyclone engines was produced by Canadian Associated Aircraft. These saw limited operational use and were mostly relegated to training roles. The result? A bomber 15 miles per hour slower with engines prone to oil leaks. Mechanics at RAF Scampton coined the term Hampden handshake for the ritual of tightening engine mounts after every flight. Meanwhile, crews improvised fixes, stuffing rags into leaking fuel lines, jury-rigging bomb sites with string and chalk, and replacing shattered plexiglass with painted plywood. The plane's lowest point came on April 13, 1940, during the Norwegian campaign. 12 Hampdens from No. 44 Squadron attacked Stavanger-Sola Airfield, a key Luftwaffe base. Flying at 200 feet to avoid radar, they met a storm of 20mm flak and Bf-109s. 10 bombers crashed in flames. The 2 survivors, navigators dead and pilots bleeding, limped back to Scotland. German ground crews, sifting through wreckage, marveled at the Hampdens' fragility. By May 1940, Hampden losses topped 54%, yet production accelerated. Workers at Radlett, now including women and teenagers, assembled planes around the clock. But the Hampdens' fate was sealed, a stopgap measure in a war rapidly outrunning its design. A coffin in the sky. By 1941, its loss rate was among the worst in the RAF, especially during daylight raids where missions bordered on suicidal. What began as a rushed production effort now metastasized into a cycle of futility and carnage as Hampden squadrons were thrown against targets they couldn't hit in planes they couldn't defend. The Hampdens' flaws reached their grotesque peak during Operation Fuller, the February 12, 1942 attempt to stop the Scharnhorst, Gneisenau, and Prinz Eugen during their Channel dash to Germany. 6 Hampdens from No. 144 Squadron, armed with torpedoes, raced to intercept the battleships off Dover. Flying at mast height to evade radar, they met a wall of flak so intense, navigators reported the sea itself seemed to erupt. None released their torpedoes. 2 Hampdens disintegrated mid-air. The remaining 4, holed by hundreds of shell fragments, ditched into the channel. German flak batteries reported engaging Hampdens at extremely low altitudes, with some gunners using small arms fire. Night operations offered no respite. The Hampdens' instability and turbulence, a byproduct of its narrow wings and lightweight frame, turned navigation into guesswork. On November 7, 1941, one crew reportedly dropped their bombs over a Swedish lake 300 miles off course, prompting a rare diplomatic protest. Swedish authorities, after identifying the wreckage, formally protested the RAF for violating neutrality. The RAF quietly reimbursed Stockholm for accidental landscaping. Crews faced horrors beyond combat. The Hampdens' uninsulated cockpit subjected men to negative 40 degrees Celsius temperatures, freezing oxygen masks to faces. Gunners, sealed in their plexiglass turrets, urinated into empty ammunition cans to avoid frostbite. The bomber's single escape hatch, located behind the pilot, required a 5-step exit drill, useless under fire. Even the Hampdens' vaunted speed became a liability. Its fuel load, around 600 gallons, forced pilots to climb slowly or risk starving the engines, especially dangerous over flak zones. On August 25, 1941, a Hampden from the No. 61 Squadron climbing too steeply during a Rotterdam raid stalled and spun into the ground. Investigators found its engines choked with unmetered fuel. By mid-1942, squadrons rebelled. No. 5 Group reported widespread refusals to fly Hampdens without fighter escorts. Morale collapsed further when ground crews discovered that the Hampdens' self-sealing fuel tanks, retrofitted in desperation, used rubber recycled from hot water bottles. The Hampdens' final indignity came not from Germans, but from gravity. On September 14, 1942, a No. 408 Squadron crew, returning from a mine-laying sortie, discovered their bomb bay doors jammed. With landfall approaching, the pilot executed a hard maneuver to shake loose the 2,000-pound naval mine. It worked, but the sudden shift in weight sheared the wings clean off. The Hampden spiraled into the North Sea, leaving no trace. Legacy of the Suitcase. The Hampdens' early retirement in late 1942 marked not an end, but a reckoning. Its 4,000 wartime sorties had cost 714 crews, 1,428 men, and yielded mixed results. 18 U-boats sunk, 11 warships damaged, and countless futile raids. Yet its true legacy lay in the hard truths it forced the RAF to confront. While its lightweight design inspired the more robust Vickers-Wellington, the Hampdens' lack of armor proved that speed alone couldn't trump survivability. As historian Max Hastings noted, it taught us that a bomber must endure as well as attack. a lesson etched in blood and aluminum. The Avro Lancaster, with its armored turrets and redundant systems, benefited from broader RAF lessons about survivability, lessons underscored by the Hampden's vulnerabilities. Post-war, the Hampden found muted utility. A handful were converted into target tugs, towing practice sleeves for anti-aircraft gunners, a grim irony for a plane once dubbed Flying Coffin. Others served the Meteorological Office, gathering storm data over the North Atlantic until 1946. Their narrow fuselages, stripped of guns, now carried weather instruments instead of bombs. A few even lingered as instructional airframes, teaching mechanics the perils of rushed engineering. Civilian cargo conversions proved impractical due to the Hampden's cramped design and safety risks, with industry reports citing significant operational limitations. But the numbers couldn't lie. The Hampden's sky-high loss rate spurred reforms. It had to. Bomber Command abandoned daylight raids, embraced electronic countermeasures, and prioritized crew safety. The approximately £2 billion program became a physical ghost, haunting post-war budget debates as a case study in wartime myopia. The Hampden's final tribute? A bridge between eras, one that collapsed but showed where to build next. So, was the Hampden a heroic stepping stone or a hubristic blunder? What do you think? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to join us on the next historical dig. Until then, remember, history is full of hidden gems if you know where to dig.